Julian was just telling us a little bit about his origins and his current iteration of his business. So, Julian, let's get back to the wonderful start to your story and your business.
So this iteration of my business has been now around for 9 years, which is crazy. It'll go into its 10th year in May, which is amazing. And I've been in weddings and events really since 2004. So let's not do the math on it, Let's just say that I don't have any hair left,
Gotcha.
and we can just celebrate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and it's been one through lots of different paths in the wedding industry, which is great. I started in university. I actually put myself through school doing sorority parties. So yeah, it's wild. And then really it's only up from there. And so sororities, they have $1. So you're just like, okay, this is great, but I need, so then I actually went and worked in corporate events for USA Today. And then I worked for Rosewood Hotels and Resorts for a little while. Then I left and ended up doing some wedding planning. I worked for a big production house here in Dallas doing floral and decor. And then ultimately back to Rosewood before I started this business in 2016. So it's...
Wow. Well, those are extremely notable places and stops there. It sounds like there was a pretty rapid ascent, and that's a lot to be proud of. One of the things that we're focusing on at ITC, as you can imagine, is the value of networking and the value of creating meaningful relationships. And I'm sure either within any of those stops or moving from one to the other, what's been your approach at just kind of like, ingratiating yourself to a new environment, or what's your just kind of like your feeling for meeting people in general when you walk into a business setting?
Yes. And I would say networking has been crucial in every single aspect of my career, right? Because the relationships that you have and that you bring with you forward into whatever the next thing that you're doing are literally the only thing that you get to move forward with. And so being able to leave a job in the most graceful way and then enter a new job with all of those relationships intact is literally the most important thing. And I think the thing that really has driven the success of my business right now in terms of being able to walk out from my last career in hotels and walk right into the luxury, ultra luxury market. And that I really would say is all due to networking. At the end of my kind of tenure with Rosewood, they were about to move me to California to run another hotel there. And I had been in kind of an area director position. And so I really wasn't on property anymore. I was kind of directing from a higher level, and they wanted me to go back on property. And it was just not something I really wanted to do. And I looked around and I thought, I built all of this network in Dallas. I've spent all of this time over all of these years. It's the longest place I've ever lived. It's the place that I put down roots, place that I really kind of grew up in the wedding industry, I would say. And I didn't want to walk away from all of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I decided, okay, it's time. You got to take the leap. You got to jump out on your own. And I really do attribute the almost immediate success of my business directly to networking. And so I think it's the most important thing that we do. It's interesting. The longer you're in this business, the harder it is to kind of meet new people in some ways, because you're so focused on running your business and doing the thing and keeping the machine going. But it's really important to actually take time and connect with people and stay connected with your...
I love that answer. And that leads into a question that we really want to focus on. And how have your thoughts evolved, or where are you now with the difference between making establishing a new relationship and then sort of maintaining those current relationships without, being kind of cheesy about it, without taking advantage of the situation or coming across as disingenuous?
Yeah. And I think the thing for me at this stage in my career is the primary focus, I would say, is maintaining relationships,
Okay.
right? It is maintaining my network. It is carving out time to ensure that people that I really care about in my network are well taken care of. They're well thought of. We're reminding ourselves that we're all together in this all the time as much as possible. And that looks so different now than it used to. I
Yeah.
think it used to, earlier in my career, it used to look like going to a lot of events and being at everything and all of the things. And now it's much more targeted, right? It's much more, come to my house and let's have a meal, right? Or I'm in this certain city and we have a great relationship, so let me take you to dinner, right? It's much more one on, and I think we should talk about this too. But for me, I'm definitely an introverted extrovert, right? And so I really do better in smaller group situations where we can really connect one on one and develop a much deeper connection than you can just like at a cocktail party, right? But I also find the value of just being in the room, right? That's the other part of, I think, the not making it cheesy, right? Is to show up in a space where other like-minded people are similar to this setting, who are all kind of looking for the same thing, and then allowing something to grow organically, right? The pull aside from a, like right after kind of a panel, right? Or the question and answer period is a place where I feel like you can really make a deep connection, or literally taking the time to really enjoy the person sitting next to you at the luncheon that you're happen to all be at, right? And I think that the crucial part there is to really focus on being present with one person and the person that's in front of you, not like darting your eyes over their shoulder. Who do I need to go talk to next? Like saying, at each of these events, I'm going to make one or two meaningful connections is so much more valuable now than, it's almost like speed dating, right? And
Sure.
so I think a lot of it is just being prepared. Who's going to be there? Who do you want to meet? Do a little proactive research on the front side, and it will pay off in much larger dividends on the back side.
That's wonderful and really practical advice. And so, two questions come to mind. One, I think for any vendor on the ascent, right? Anyone in that sort of middle, I hate to say middle stage of our career because we don't know when that career ends, right? But in that 5, 6, 7, 8 time, year period in our careers, you're aspirational for those folks. You're a person that they want to meet, that we want to meet. Being on that end of it, what are some things that you admire? What are some ways that you've been approached that you thought, wow, what a wonderful way to start that conversation, or what a wonderful way to reach out to me?
Yeah. Really has been lately, it has been like over a meal, to be honest, where I've just happened to be at a certain situation, or I've been speaking at a conference, or I've been going to a dinner, and I just get sat by next to someone. And it really has been about these conversations and like really asking good questions and not asking questions about work. Like that,
Right.
I think, is the most important thing, friends, is like, do not ask me questions about work. I don't want to talk about work. I want to talk about my husband or my dog, or where I'm going on vacation next, or that I just went skiing, or that I did X, Y, and Z. I think, who are you as a person, and what makes you tick, and asking really interesting questions is the most easy way to connect.
Yeah.
And it pays dividends in terms of like an Instagram reach out or an email reach out or any of the rest of that. It becomes noise because there's so much of it happening. Now, I'm not going to say that it's don't do that, right? Because on occasion you're like, oh, well, you reached out and that like kind of worked out perfectly and it was the right timing, and who knew, But
Yeah.
90% of the time, you really have to like play the long game and say, okay, here's like a little nugget here, and then here's another little nugget here, and then here's another little nugget here. And it just builds over time. And so I think it is about just like really putting yourself in the rooms where the people are that you want to have in your network, and you'll organically kind of meet them. Or I also would say the other thing I think is very helpful is like a personal connection. Like if a person, now we know each other, right? We're connected here. There's maybe a third person, like right on the other side of you, who also could be a good fit to work with me in whatever capacity. An introduction is literally the best way always,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it just vets it automatically. It says, oh, this is a person that I already trust this person. I know that they do great work, and I know that they want to work with me in whatever capacity. And so I think watching that there's so much more credence to coming through a referral to be able to kind of penetrate that vendor, the trust a little bit. Yeah.
And what a good reminder to have, to strive for real interactions, right? Because you never know, who someone has a connection to, or who someone can introduce, or vice versa, who you can introduce someone to and
Exactly.
change their trajectory. That's something that I find very satisfying is, getting that email and be like, wow, thank you so much for making that introduction. That changed, this opportunity for me.
Yeah.
But if
And
you
that's
don't,
my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing to do, like at a networking event, is to connect people. I'm like, you should know him. You should know him. Here's what they do. And I'm out. I'm going to go and like get a Diet Coke,
yeah,
and let you guys just do what you need to do. And I think that there's the skill of the great introduction of just like telling someone who the other person is so fully that they're then engaged, and then they can ask really wonderful questions from there to develop the relationship in their own.
I love it. So, because we keep it real, right? This is something I've learned because you and I are in the same camp of the introverted extrovert. So, I definitely have, a certain recharge period, and we could start a group, but we would never message each other. So, we'll just put that off
Exactly.
to the side, I think.
It's just like a
Yeah,
silent group of
yeah,
people who just support each other.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we go to these events and we try to start that conversation, and it's just not there. What are some assumptions that people should avoid when that happens? You go through, you have your methodology. I like to ask like 3 questions, and if they're not really feeling it, then I'll move on because I don't want to detract from anyone's experience.
Mhm.
But let's talk about that experience. Like, what if you're early in your introduction to an arena or the room, if we use that metaphor, how do we rebound from that experience?
Yeah, I think number one, don't take it personally, right? Like you don't know what's going on in someone's life. Like I might have literally taken a call from a client who was very angry and then walked into this room. You know, I'm not even present at that point. Like who knows what's actually going on in my head. And I think we're all in that kind of place, especially with work, right? And because you're at a networking event, so you're also all kind of checking your email and making sure that nothing is like really on fire, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
So I think if someone isn't interested, that's a great 3-question rule. I love that. I'm going to take that and like use it in
You
my
got
next
it.
and just be like, yes, ask 3 questions. And if they're not interested, then you kind of move on. You can tell if someone is not engaged with you.
Yeah.
And you then can just politely excuse yourself. Or my favorite is to then just introduce that person to someone else.
Oh, what a great idea. Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, you know who you should meet? This person.
Yeah. That's great.
I gotta
Yeah.
go. Because
Yeah.
maybe there is a connection there. And if there's not, then that's that other new person's problem. But I think you just don't know where people are. You don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's happening in their personal life. And so not taking it personally is the most important thing. It is no judgment on your work. It is no judgment on if they know you or they don't know you or they haven't responded to your Instagram message. I
Yeah.
think it is just conditional upon like remember that you're meeting people where they are and you can't control that.
That it's such a valuable phrase that we're meeting people where they are.
Mhm.
There's a really interesting study that came out, and I don't have the link close by, but I'll get it out so people can kind of check this out. But there's a study done, like let's say you and I are having a conversation, and we may know someone casually in common. Whatever attributes I ascribe to that person, if I give a glowing review, you are very likely to ascribe to me.
Mm.
And so if they're negative, the same thing happens.
Yes.
So just kind of like in maintaining the good spirit of elevating everyone, that's just a really good science backed thing to remember about maintaining a positive presence.
Mhm.
Your introduction is such a gracious transition in and out of a conversation. I love that.
Always. And
Yeah,
yeah, and keep it positive. Like we all know our job is hard, right? We all know that it's a very difficult industry to be in. We know that there are challenges. And so I think it's really important to try to keep it as positive as possible,
for sure.
and also be as real as possible. Because I also think this is the thing in networking. I think we sometimes want to put on like the most positive version of ourselves, right? I think that's human nature, right? We all want to present the best, but also in presenting the best, sometimes that is not the most authentic, right? We can read through when it doesn't feel quite right. Humans know. you know? So I think being as honest as possible and like really sharing where you are in your journey, like, hey, I'm in this place. Maybe it's not quite right. What advice do you have for X, Y, and Z? Right? You don't have to share your woes. You don't really have to like share why you got there, but just share like, hey, I am having this difficulty and it's really rough and I'm not sure what to do. Have you encountered something like that? Because I think there is this thing about bonding with another person over like maybe a shared problem or a problem that the other one has gone through and the other one finds themselves in at that moment.
Very
And
true.
when you can share like the truth of what's happening, then it's so powerful. And
Yeah.
then so it develops a different type of connection, because you're like, oh my God, that guy that he told me that he was having a problem with X, Y, and Z. And then you think about it later. And then maybe the solution comes to you, right? Because maybe you don't have the solution in the moment. But you're like, oh, I need to connect him with that company because they were amazing for me and they changed like the trajectory of my business in X, Y, and Z way.
Yeah. Hey, listen, getting coffee mugs in the mail are great, but if you can solve a problem, you're probably going to get a call back, right?
A
That's
100%.
that's
A
the way to do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you, and you don't have to share names or anything, any specifics necessarily, but is there a time that comes to mind that one of those meetings really had an impact on you or your business? You made a friend, you gained a good relationship, or you solved a problem from a networking event?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I would say, okay, so I was working at Rosewood and I was working at the Mansion and the Crescent in Dallas. And there was a guy, and you probably know him, his name's Sam Jacobson. And he had just started working at Todd Events at that point. And so he was kind of their new like director of operations and he wanted to have lunch. And so he was like, can we have lunch? It'd be great to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, blah, blah, blah. And I was just kind of like, in some ways, to be totally honest, blowing it off, right? I was like, ugh, I have to have lunch with this guy. Like, I'm not going to change my mind about this thing that I had in relation to the business that we were doing together. But you know what? I'll have the lunch and it's whatever, you know? And in all honesty, that lunch changed the whole trajectory of my life in a lot
Wow.
of ways. Yeah, because I was open. Like I got to the lunch and I was like, this guy, he's got some different ideas, and maybe I need to listen. And then like it just evolved and then we became really good friends. And then he started his consulting business and then I started my business. And it's been like a really insanely cool partnership really ever since then.
Yeah.
But it was definitely not something that I wanted to like jump 2 feet in, like, oh, I'm going to go and like hear all this great stuff from this guy who I've never met before.
Right.
It was like, okay, well, he is with the company that we do a lot of business with. And so it's like a necessary evil in some ways. But I think as long as you can stay open and willing
Yeah.
and ultimately I officiated the man's wedding, So
Wow.
yeah. And so it's like, you just have to be open. And like, I think the position that I always am trying to take when it comes to networking, and sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't, but the position I need to always be in is really like this seeking position. Like, what is the thing that I can get from this? What can I learn from this? There's got to be one good takeaway. And if you're in the position to see it and seek it, then it's way more clear than when you're closed off and you're like being a little bitch in the corner,
Sure.
or like just standing by the bar and not speaking to anyone, or like not trying to initiate a conversation. And so it's just all of these kind of, well, I really didn't want to have this lunch, but I went and it was transformative.
Yeah. Sam is a wonderful person, and I've always enjoyed chatting with him. And I can see where your values align, and just the way you appreciate communication, just like the values you have in communicating with people. The mantra that we have is there's no substitute for sincerity. If
No,
people are genuinely having a good time, if you're genuinely interested in them, there's absolutely no substitute for that. If we can put aside our own goals for a little bit, we can really connect.
we
So
can't.
it sounds like you guys did that. Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
help other people.
Yes,
We're inherently helpers. We're in this business to help. And so I think sometimes we forget that.
very true. That's the whole reason we're here, right? Is to make other people's events pop and create those cornerstone memories. That's very true.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's really, going back to the different ways that we can connect, whether it's email or, gifting or all those things, you can tell me if you would amend this summary of that is basically where we are in our careers kind of gives us different levels of access to people. And
Mhm.
not only that, but like our comfort with ourselves and our skill sets, we meet them where they are, but we also should accept ourselves where we are. So if we don't have a lot of experience or as much experience as we have, that's okay. It's the open mindedness and it's the trying new things. And like you mentioned, it's the reflection on what worked and what I want to try and what I want to run past someone. That's what keeps the progression, right?
Yeah.
It's not
And
home
being
runs, it's
willing
just
to
keep moving
fail,
on.
right? Like
Yeah.
being willing to fail. Like maybe you botched it totally,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you botched the interaction, or you couldn't come up with the question, or you got tongue tied, or whatever happened. What I When I was little, there was like this show, and they would always say like try again. Like okay, if you fall off the cliff, then you have to try again, right? And just like pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back out there.
That's it.
And it's okay. And I also think in our industry, we put too much emphasis on like these different levels of things, right?
Right.
Like, well, I'm at this level and you're at that level and you're at that level and we're never going to get the chance to work together. But I don't think that's true. I think we're all just doing the best that we can given the hands that we've been dealt.
Yeah.
And different people find themselves in different situations. For example, I got to step right out of ultra luxury into ultra luxury. That's not a thing that normally happens, but it's because I worked my way for the 20 years prior to that to get to that level in like a different path than like doing it in the event planning space. So everybody comes from a different place.
Yeah.
And so there's so much commonality in our industry. You can find the commonalities if you're looking for them again, right? It's when you're like looking at the room and you're like, oh, well, I'm different, than them or them or them or them. Instead of looking at like, oh, I'm similar in this way, in this way, in this way. And maybe my business looks totally different, but I could gain something from that person over there. And that person over there could teach me this other thing that I would have never learned if I wasn't open to it.
100%. I felt very out of place in the industry because I had sort of like a nonlinear path in.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I attended an in-person event that changed for me. You meet a couple people that you have that connection with, and then that builds, and you add to that, you build your own little village, and then that's when I think it starts to get exciting. So that's wonderful advice.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah.
it's fun.
Let's see. How do you? We've touched on this, but just to reflect on this, how do you prepare yourself mentally? I know at this point in your career, it's probably second nature to say, this is on my calendar, let's go knock it out. I'm ready to rock and roll. But what are some ways for events that are extra special or that you really get up for that you prepare yourself to head into those events? What's your protocol for that?
Yeah, I think it is like from events that we're executing, just to clarify.
Yeah, just kind of any social event, really. Networking in particular would be great, but if it can be an event that you're executing as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's about recharging,
Okay.
right? I know that I'm going to be the best if I spend like some hours by myself before I go. If I'm just like back to back to back to back going into something, I'm not at my best. And I think that's like the introvert in me. I need to recharge my battery. I need to be able to then like go and be the extrovert in whatever situation it is. And so if I don't take that time, then I'm in real trouble. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to like perform at my best. And you don't want to catch me on one of those days because that's when I'm just like closed off and not really interested in having a conversation. And I think in terms of like the preparedness piece of it, I really do take the time to look at what I'm going to, right? And who is going to be there and what relationships am I going to build, or who do I already know that I can then build a relationship with someone else like through that relationship.
Sure.
And lately I feel like I've been going to a lot of events where I had no idea what was going on beforehand. You
It's-
know,
yeah.
I feel like we've been going on a lot of like trips to see different properties and all these things. And sometimes you don't know anything until like right until you arrive, and then you don't even know who's going to be there. And so just remaining open in that way of just like the recharge is really good, I think. And then also like carving time out within like a multi-day event to like have space with myself,
Yeah.
and really just take a deep breath and be able to show up in the way that my clients need me.
Absolutely. That ties back to what you said about, let's talk about something other than work for a little while we're here. Let's just have a
Yeah.
good time, right? Let's
Yeah.
let's enjoy each other's company for a little while.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
that's what we're shooting for, is to make sure that all our guests have the opportunity for that. We put people in a room that are going to enjoy each other's company, but also we have a little bit of time to recharge, and we walk away feeling refreshed and excited about our industry. Hopefully with relationships that contribute to feelings of respect and trust and inclusion. And, we're ready to step out and take some pride in what we do, because we collectively help to create memories. And I can't think of a more magical thing than to create memories for people who 20 years down the line can look back at that album and think that was just a wonderful, magical moment to see so and so celebrate, whatever the case is. And that's a great way to live life. That's
Yeah, it
pretty good.
is. And you get to do it with your friends,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the thing about this job too, is like every weekend we're almost working with people who have entered the process as friends or become friends through the process, right? So you're like, it's like you're just hanging out with your friends and you're executing like this insane thing that no one's ever going to believe happened, And sometimes it's a wild ass roller coaster of a ride. And you're like, wow, we just did that together. And then sometimes it's like the smoothest thing you've ever done. And it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. But each one is so special because it is done with this group of friends who, um, who you learn to trust and who you rely on. And I think that's the beauty of what we do, actually. And also why I love doing destination is because it has kept the newness every single time. Right. Because you bring on some players who you already know, but almost every time in destination, you're bringing new people together and you're trying to figure out what's the dynamic and how do all of these pieces fit together? And you work this way and you work this way and you work this way. And I've never worked with anybody quite like that. And so I need to adapt myself to that new working style. And what can I do to set ourselves up for success to learn something new? And a lot of the time it's in some foreign country where I don't speak the language. And so like what you would normally say in English doesn't translate into Spanish in Mexico, which really doesn't translate into Spanish in Spain, which is totally different from Italian. And so like the language and the verbiage and the things change. And so you have to just remain nimble and again, open and willing to learn and admit that you don't know him.
Love it. Well, we are thrilled to have you. You're phenomenal, especially for the inaugural set of events. I mean, it would be that way regardless, but to start off with the attitudes that you shared and the knowledge that you have and your experience, we are absolutely ecstatic. If you wouldn't mind just sharing one thing that you're looking forward to in coming to and joining us, I would really appreciate to be able to share that with people.
Yeah. I'm actually just excited to go and meet new people. I have no idea who's going to be there. I have no idea what it's going to be like, but it's like something new and fun and fresh and different. And I'm really excited. I'm just excited to meet everybody and make maybe some new connections and then see some old faces too.
Absolutely. Well, we can't wait. I really appreciate you making time, especially at the end of a Friday.
Yes.
And I hope you have an absolutely phenomenal weekend, and you get to recharge and your phone rings only minimally.
Thank you.